in the last video we have discussed about the variables in Kotlin. So now we are going to move further and discuss the data types in Kotlin. Okay, so as I've already mentioned, Kotlin is a statically typed language. That is the variable of the variable is already known during the compile time. So there are a few type of variables in Kotlin. So I'll just start a function. So when I so there are mainly four types. There are numbers, there are characters, there are booleans, and there are arrays. I'll cover them one by one. So firstly I'll go to the number type. So number in Kotlin are similar to Java and any other programming language. So there are 6 built-in types representing number. So the 6 are byte, short, int, long, float, and double. So out of them mainly we will be using int and double in most of the time. So what is byte? So I can create one byte for you. So I'll create val range and I'll mention its type byte. I'll mention it as 112. So the byte is 1 byte is 8 bits. You might already know that. So there are totally 8 bit and 8 sign bit to 2's complement integer. So byte data can have values from -128 to 127. So when I have a concise data and it has a concise value between 0 to 100 or such that, then I use byte. So what it does is, instead of using an integer or a long int or a double, so it concise the code in very small space. It requires a very less space. So when I assign it a value of 200, so it shows a red underline, and when I hover over it, it says that the integer literal does not conform the expected type byte. So what it says basically, it is out of the range, out of the bound. So when I go and print the range, so it will be printing 112 as we expect. So yeah, it prints 112. Okay, so we will move on, and next is short under the number. So short is a data type having a 16. So I'll mention here it is having 8 bit, 8 bit, 8 bit. One bit is 8. 1 byte is 8 bit. So the short is having uh, the values can be assigned to a 16 bit signed uh, signed complement integer, 2's complement integer. So the short data type can have values from -32768 to 32767. We don't have to remember that or know that. Just for knowledge sake I am telling you this. So the short has a capacity, or we can say it uses 16-bit data. Okay, so next we will move to int. So int is a 32-bit signed 2's complement integer, and mainly we will be using int in most of our codes. So int data type can have values from -2 to the power 31 to 2 to the power 31 minus 1. Okay, so any value I assign to a is by default stored as an int. When I hover over a, it shows that it is an int. Okay, so it is also a default value. So next is long. So what happens when I have a integer of value more than 2 to the power 31? So we can store it in long. So basically long has a 64 bit signed 2's complement integer. Okay, so when I have a long integer, we will store it as long. So the keyword used for it is, I'll just mention one value, say long int, and I'll mention it as long, and it can have any value. Okay, so moving on, we have double. So double is a data type with double precision of 64-bit floating point. So whenever I define any decimal as a value, suppose 1.23, so it automatically is defined as a double. Okay, as we can see here. So if I print decimal, it will be printing 1.23. Now what is float? We have seen about double. So double has also 64-bit. So float data type is a single precision 32-bit floating point. Okay, so there was int that was getting by default assigned, and there was byte and short that concise the storage. So whenever we want to acquire it less storage, we can use float. So how to define float? So we can define it as, well, decimal float in this way also. Okay, but so we could have by the uh, by the thing we are going the seeing, like we define it in this way, but it is not true. So what if I have to define a float? So what I do is, I just define it as decimal and then put a f. So what it does is, it convert it to float. So it is now a float. So when I print uh, decimal float, so what it does is, it will be printing 1.23, only 1.123 and not the f. So what it says is, it is a float. Okay, and nothing else. So we have used 1.123 f instead of 1.123 in the above in the program. It is because 1.123 is a double literal, and you cannot assign double value inside a type of float. Okay, so now I can here mention float, so it will not giving any error. Okay, so what if I am not sure about the what if I am not sure about what number value a variable will assign in the program? So what I can do is, I can use a number data type. So I will define var test and assign it number data type. Okay, so I can put anything into, like I can put a string into the, okay, sorry, I can put a string into test, I can put a integer into text, okay, sorry, number. So I can put an integer into test, I can put a decimal into test, I can put anything into test if I have defined it data type as number. So now we have completed our numbers data type. Now we will move on to characters. To represent character in Kotlin, char data types are used. So what I'll do is, I'll just create a letter where letter, and what I do is, I define its value as char. So the char data type is used. So I can assign it any character. So please note that the character will be in single quotation marks. Okay. So I have defined a character. Now the next data type is booleans. So what booleans are? Booleans are simply either true, either false. They have only two possible values. So when I define a boolean variable, boolean, so I'll name it as flag and it has a data types boolean. So I can either uh, give flag value true, 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 okay, or a false, okay. So it has only two values. So booleans are generally used in decision making statement that we will be using in our later discussion. Okay, then further we have arrays. So we will be discussing arrays in a separate topic, but just to define it, an array is a container that hold value of one single type. For example, you can create an array that can hold 100 values of int type. Okay, then we have string. So just for defining purpose, I'll define a string like val name. I have already defined it, but okay. So this is my name. Okay, so please note that the string must be in double quotation mark. Okay, thank you for watching this video. We have now covered the data types in Kotlin.